Hello, everyone. Our song is so great. I love it. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to episode number 84 of Restitching the Tapestry. We are 16 episodes away from 100 episodes. I think I did the math right on that. We all know that I was never the most mathematically inclined person. But yes, welcome. We are going to be talking about the student debt crisis tonight, so that's going to be a fun topic to unpack. But
yeah,
of course, before we do that, let's just talk about how we've been and what we've been up to and all of that. Heather, how have you been and what have you been up to?
To be honest, I'm kind of surprised it's Thursday already. If that tells you anything, it's like, oh my God.
It's Thursday.
It's Thursday.
What?
Yeah, it's been kind of a whirlwind. Just working 40 hours a week, of course. But I've been working on some creative stuff too. Like this weekend, I'm doing a book promo.
Me too.
I know. So
Sunday.
excited. Yeah. So getting that stuff situated. And then I've been working on my family genealogy again, which is really interesting. And yeah, so that's me just trying to keep my sanity.
That's
and
exciting.
You?
Have you been working on your mystery novel?
No, I haven't actually. It's just literally. I shouldn't say I haven't had time, because if I can find time to work on the genealogy, it's more a little bit of a burnout going on with stuff that's going on at work. So
your creative spark is resting elsewhere.
Exactly. The genealogy, I can just read stuff and go, okay, so and so was born here and they died there. Next. It's an assembly line. You don't really have to think about it too much. Outside of the research, of course.
Yeah, I totally get that. I, for a long while, had that same block when it came to poetry. So, for me, I've been doing pretty well. This week has been pretty good. I've had time to relax. I've been reading a bit. Working on school stuff still. That doesn't seem to ever go away. I've actually been working on like writing poems and stuff like that too. So I don't think I've told you this yet, Heather. So you get to find out at the same time everybody does. But I, the other day, like a couple of days ago, made the decision that I'm going to do a small chat book of 30 Tonka style poems about like, think carbon footprint, but more about like my childhood.
Ooh,
yeah.
Love it.
And the tentative title right now is, what the hell is the title?
That's a great title. What the hell is the title?
I think the title was Casting Seeds Along the Path. That's the title.
Oh, I love that.
That's
you. Beautiful.
Yeah, so next time I see you, I have a lot of poems to share.
Yay!
But beyond that, I'm preparing for this weekend. I'm going to G-Fest on Friday and Saturday. Not looking forward to driving, but I am excited to see a bunch of nerd stuff. Who knows what I will come home with? Will it be another giant Mothra plushie? I have no idea. We will see. But it's going to be fun. Like, it's the first time we've actually been able, because like over the past few years, I've been going to G-Fest regularly. And then of course the pandemic happened. So now everybody's kind of like just really excited to reconnect. And I have a bunch of like online friends I'm going to see and stuff like that. So it's going to be fun.
Good.
I'm excited.
Can you bring me back a piggy corn? If they have one, a stuffed piggy corn. That's what I call it. I know that's not the name, but that's the name that's
a Baragon. Yes.
Piggy corn.
I will look for one and see if I can find one.
Oh my God. I would pee. I would love a piggy corn. It is. It's a pig and a unicorn.
Right. Heather and I have been planning to do a Godzilla movie marathon soon.
Yes, absolutely.
So we're gonna have to, maybe we'll do that, and then we'll do like an entire episode about our experience doing that.
I could see that being an amazing episode.
Oh yeah, it would be. Yep. It would be. We know it would be.
Especially since I would just give names to all the characters that don't belong. You know, piggy corn. You know.
That would be amazing.
Sorry, Godzilla people. No, I really do. I love the shows.
Oh yeah, how can you not, right? All right, so let's talk about the student debt crisis. Oh, wait, I got to go over the
Mission
show's
statement.
mission statement first.
That's
Getting ahead of
okay.
myself.
We got excited about Godzilla.
We did.
Yeah.
All right. We live in a dynamic society where social media shapes us by creating greater opportunities for connection. It has led to a developing understanding of the adversity many marginalized communities face, the powers causing the adversity, and those who act as bystanders as atrocities take place in real time. Our goal with this show is to make connections and have challenging conversations about social topics, current events, pop culture, and art. Together, let's weave the threads of understanding with what privilege we have in order to learn, educate, and create in a world that's growing. Okay. So, obviously, the big atrocity that we want to talk about tonight is the student debt crisis, which that's kind of like the title that this crisis has been given because it's been talked about a lot more in recent years because let's just say there's like a lot of inflation when it comes to students attending colleges and universities. So we're going to be kind of breaking that down a little bit, defining it, and sharing our experiences and thoughts with regard to that topic. So first and foremost, so far we have one person who's commented in the chat, stop motion. Hope you managed to get your headphones. If not, then maybe you can watch it on the replay. We'll see. Hope you're doing well though.
Yep.
So let's define what the student debt crisis is. So according to the Student Debt Crisis Center, basically it acknowledges the incredible amount of inflation that students have faced over the last 20 years. So the SDCC believes that we have to act now to address the immediate needs of borrowers and fix the failed policy experiment of debt financed higher education. And a horrifying statistic that I did not realize until today is that over 45 million Americans owe more than a total of $1.7 trillion in student loan debt. 1.7. I'm getting the number 45.
No, it's okay.
Dyslexic. But isn't that like, I didn't think it was that high. I mean, I guess maybe I was in denial, but what is your reaction to that?
I obviously saw my face. It's a horrifying number, but I can't say I'm really shocked.
Yeah.
I can't. And I know we're going to talk about this a little bit later tonight, but so not shocked. I have family members, even my husband will never pay off those debts. Never.
Oh yeah. Mm-mm. Like, and I'm at that point as well. At that point as well.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, thank you for the kind comment. Music, movies, and more with Brian. I really appreciate that you enjoy my stuff. I appreciate you being here. So additionally, the SDCC says, for millions of individuals and families, the higher education debt burden is crushing. Student debt means the delay of countless dreams, like buying a house, starting a family, building a business. This crisis is disproportionately shouldered by Black, Indigenous, and people of color and continues to worsen economic inequality. Additionally, they go on to say that we have successfully engaged 3 presidential administrations, Congress, and state legislators to address this crisis by shifting the narrative to include broad-based debt cancellation, by securing debt relief for victims of for-profit colleges and disabled borrowers. So this organization, the SDCC, they're trying to make efforts to alleviate this, but obviously the student debt crisis is going to be a problem that needs to be fixed by a multi-pronged approach, I would say. It's not something that one person pushes a button for and it disappears. It's systematic.
Wouldn't it be great if it did work that way?
Right. It would be nice. It would be
ideal. Oh my God, yeah.
Arby's here. Hello, Arby. It's
Hi,
good to
Arby.
see you. So in a nutshell, that is the student debt crisis, like formally defined. Now, I guess the big question that we should ask is, how have we directly been impacted by the student debt crisis and our experiences in higher education? Would you like to go first, Heather?
No.
Or would you
I
like me
go
to?
first. You need to go first. I always seem to go first.
Oh, okay. It's
So, you
because
first.
you are, it's because I love listening to you. That's why. Okay. So I, in many ways, almost did not go to college because I come from like a low to like middle class family. And both of my parents, like I'm not like a first generation college student by any means. Both of my parents went. My mom has a degree and my dad has a certification, which is essentially a degree in his field. But like obviously as inflation and debt got worse in the 80s and 90s, like the reality of going to college just didn't really seem to be a thing until in high school I managed to get like a couple of scholarships. Like basically rubbing two pennies together and calling it a scholarship. That motivated me to want to go, and that's when I was directed by guidance counselors to apply for financial aid. So with financial aid, you'll get some access to like grants, which is money you don't have to pay back, right? But the rest of the financial aid usually is subsidized and unsubsidized loans. So I made the decision of going to a 4-year university. Didn't have anything saved up, nothing. And did not have a job either when I was leaving high school and entering college. So I quickly discovered my first semester that I was completely destitute. There were, I remember days where I did not eat because I was so poor. And it was really difficult. It was really scary. And I didn't want to like really, my big thing is I didn't want to talk to my parents about it because I didn't want them to feel guilty, or I didn't want them to feel like they needed to shoulder the burden, because they like now, like since then, like parents can sign up for like student loans for like parents, like they can like take out loans.
Yeah, they can be co-writers.
Yeah, my parents did not do that. Like we insisted that I take out the loans myself. Which, looking in the long run, I'm glad that I did that because I did not want to cause my family, especially with how much debt I am in, I'm going to be honest about that, did not want to cause my family any financial difficulty. So my first semester, like it got pretty bad because of just me trying to save money wherever I could. I managed to just skate on by the first year because I like those grants did help me. And by the time the end of the year happened, I was able to like get a job. And that helped a little bit. But fast forward to 2008, I was a sophomore in college. I ended up having a job, but it didn't really pay me a lot. And the student debt crisis for me got worse because at a certain point, some of the federal and state designated grants, they only last for a certain amount of time. So by year 2, bye grants, sign up for scholarships, didn't get those, none of that. So it came down one semester to me almost having to leave college because I couldn't pay like the remaining bill after my financial aid. So I had to take out money from my life insurance to pay for my second year of college, which was terrible. So on top of already being in terrible debt, that happened. So the final 2 years got a little bit better because I had like 3 jobs.
Mm-hmm.
I had 3 jobs and I was barely able to make ends meet. But I will argue and say that the reason why it was so difficult for me was because I chose to stay on campus because I had a job on campus.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you who aren't really aware, college campuses are basically a very booming business for like
Oh yeah.
residency. Like
Mm-hmm.
students pay astronomical amounts of money to live on a campus.
Oh yes.
For me, I'll just be blunt. It cost me probably about $8,000 to $10,000 a semester to
Wow.
live on campus. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So my financial aid covered part of it,
Mm-hmm.
but obviously I was left over with like quite a bit that I needed to pay for.
Right.
So like had I lived off campus and maybe gotten a different job, that may have been fine, but I was already like 3 years in. I was like, I'm just gonna see it through.
Mm-hmm.
So fast forward to my master's degree, which was 3 years later because I took a break because I was like, I need to work and pay off debt. I managed to pay off like a pretty good chunk of my student loans. Like maybe
Awesome.
maybe like 5% of it.
But you know what? In the grand scheme, 5% is a lot of freaking money.
Baby steps. Baby steps.
Yeah, baby steps.
During my master's program, I ended up moving out of state. I got a graduate assistantship. So I basically got paid a stipend to teach every semester. So that helped me. I still had to take out financial aid though, because I was living in a different state by myself. And the small stipend I would get every semester was not enough.
No.
Nowhere near enough. Like the financial aid I needed to take out was to pay rent and to buy food. Because at that point in my life, I was like, I'm going to eat, damn it. Like, I'm going to eat. Nothing is going to stop me from eating.
So is that, top ramen, with a side of lobster? Oh, wait.
So yeah.
Lobster.
Oh, wait. Yeah, definitely not for
no
me.
lobster. I forgot the seafood thing.
Yeah, PSA, everybody, I hate shellfish.
You hate shellfish.
Oh, my goodness.
You'll make them barf.
Sea bugs. That's what I call them.
Sea bugs.
So I did live on ramen. Oh my gosh. Spaghetti. I was amazing at like meal prepping spaghetti. When I did my master's, like I guess because I was older, I was a little bit more like price conscious and I was like, I'm going to do things to save. So I like couponed and I meal prepped. So I made like a lot of like soups and stews, like things that I could freeze and that saved me some money. But at the end of the day, like I still came out of my master's program with like maybe an extra $15,000 added to my student loan debt.
Oh yeah.
So
awful.
Yeah. And now about how long has it been since I graduated with my master's? 6 years. Now that it's 6 years later, I'm still astronomically in debt. I've managed to pay off a little bit of it. I haven't done a lot with it though because of the pandemic and student loans being in forbearance. But yeah, that's my story with the student debt crisis. I will never forget the moment I just started realizing that the student debt crisis was real. It was my first semester during my undergrad. I felt so guilty about spending money that because of like my financial insecurities my whole life, I literally would call my parents to ask permission to buy food for myself. And they had to have like a come to Jesus moment with me and be like, Donny, this is your money. If you're hungry, buy food.
Yeah.
But well, and as horrible as this is to say, trigger warning, I'm going to be talking about eating disorder stuff. I've talked about having an eating disorder in college on my channel before. Just to give everybody a review, like between like my first and second year of college, I had developed a pretty bad eating disorder where I would periodically go on stints of like starvation, and I would periodically misuse laxatives because I thought that it was making me thinner and looking great. And it was not. It was making me sick. I firmly believe that the sheer debt that I was in contributed to the eating disorder, because in my world, that was like the primary way I could save money was through not eating food. And that was not good at all. Eventually, I did have therapy and kind of had like this moment where it was like, oh, okay, I shouldn't be doing this. I should be healthy and care about myself. So, yeah.
What does it say about this crisis that when you had to choose between eating and paying for a class? I mean, that right there should be enough to go, okay, that's enough. Let's get off the crazy train and figure this out, because that's, I mean, even if you remove the eating part of it, the sheer anxiety causing, I mean, I can't even get out what I want to say. It's just because it's so mind-numbingly ridiculous.
Oh, it is. It's really sad. And the thing is, like, I remember I wasn't alone. Like, I knew other people who were doing this too. So in a way, like, I think we kind of enabled one another too, because we would look at each other being like, we're saving money so we can continue like going to college and living on campus. And then like, and of course, like I had friends who would just drink. Like that would be that would be their meals. They would just drink, you know? Yeah. And it was really sad.
Yeah.
It was really sad.
It is sad.
Oh, RB, thank you. Yeah, I'm glad I don't do that anymore either.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So that's like, I tell people now that I'm financially secure, like I still don't feel like it's real, because I spent so much time being just very anxious about finances. So, Heather, what about your student debt experience? What's that been like?
Mine is actually kind of the opposite of yours in a lot of ways. My husband's is much more similar to you, to what you went through in some aspects, but mine was very different. I chose to stay at home because I could not fathom, because I was a homebody too. All right, so that is a big part of it. I just couldn't in my brain fathom paying to sleep there when I went to universities that were really close to home. So for me, yeah, that was one way I saved a lot of money. But what I did is when I got my my associate's degree from a community college, I worked. I had 3 jobs. I worked as a cashier at one store. I was a third key holder at another, and I ran my own DJ business. I did 3 jobs and went to school full time. When I graduated and went on to my bachelor's, all right, what happened was just even my parents, you know, they would help me where they could, like, you know, oh, you know, I'm $300 short for a book. They would buy me a book. But for the most part, it was all me. I paid for my tuition. But when I went to the bachelor's degree, of course, it's a 4-year college, and the credits in some cases tripled. And I couldn't afford $2,000 or better every 15 weeks. I just couldn't. Yeah. So my parents, they helped me for the first semester. You know, I was still working an insane number of jobs. But what we did in the end is I signed up. I had to sign up for student loans. There was no way. But what I did is I only took the loans that did not accrue interest until I graduated.
Yeah.
Yeah. did that on purpose. And then when I graduated and went for my master's degree, my parents and I had a very long talk. And because what was happening is my grades, because I was exhausted. You cannot run a business and work 2 jobs and go to school full time. You will hit a wall. And I did.
Yeah.
I hit a wall. So we had a very long conversation, and they said, look, quit your jobs. We'll still do the DJ thing when it comes up. We're not going to fish for it anymore. But if it pops up, fine. If it doesn't, whatever. You're staying at home as long as you keep the house up, do the laundry, do the cleaning. We'll call that rent, and we will help you. That was how they helped me. So I did the student loans and I did that. So I was one of the rare few that when I graduated with a master's degree, I only had $26,000 in debt. And I say the word only because that's still a lot of money, but my debt has been paid off for years because I'm also one of those people that if I get a loan, I figure out a way to pay double on my loan payments if I can.
Right.
It doesn't work anymore. Because then my husband, unfortunately, when he went to school for his associate's degree, he took both kinds of loans. And the school that he went to was very expensive. And in the end, we have a lot of student debt for him that I did the math one time, even paying, we can never pay double because the loan payments are too much, but even paying, say, $50 or $100 more a month, we won't pay that off until we're both over 100 years old. Wow. It's not going to happen. It is not going to happen. And now with the COVID thing, he's got 2 different kinds. He has the government one and he's got one through a private company. And the private company is the one that's real bad. What's happening is because the federal government ones are on hold, we're at least getting a little bit of a break and paying on the other one. But there are times when you talk about not eating, there have been times, and I know you know this, but everybody else doesn't, that even though I work a full-time job and he works a full-time job, there was an entire semester where I literally ate carrots because that is all we could afford. Carrots. Yep. That I had carrots every day for lunch. We had carrots for dinner for an entire semester. So
that's terrible.
Though I didn't feel it out of my own, I do feel it in his. And I cannot say, I pray and beg for loan forgiveness because
even if it's just like a small amount, like
oh my God,
a percentage,
a percentage, anything.
Well, so since we're sharing figures, I will be blunt. I am about $58,000 in debt right now. I've paid off about $8,000 to $10,000 of my student loans.
That's wonderful.
Thank you.
The knowledge.
But I calculated it with interest. I will have paid about close to 90 grand on those student loans. That interest is what really gets you.
Oh my God,
that's what really gets you. So I want to look at the chat really quick. Leo's here. Hello, Leo. It's good to see you. I hope that you're feeling better. So what did I miss? We've been talking about the student debt crisis. We've been sharing our experiences as former students and kind of the different difficulties and challenges we had to navigate when it came to finances in college and what forms those took. So music, movies, and more with Brian says, I commend you on your ability to do that, Heather. I am not able to do that. I had to work full time to go to college. I tried to do both and it didn't work for me. I would have to do either. Yeah. And the truth is and it really it takes so much psychological bandwidth to balance those two things. One thing that I see a lot now is that students will opt to work full time, but they will attend school part time. So they might take one college class here and there. it'll take them longer to get their degrees, but at least it alleviates a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that would be possible in your situation or not, but like I always tell my students, I'm like, just like at the end of the day, like and believe me, I've learned this the hard way, as we all know. Your health and well-being matter.
Oh yeah.
School will be there and waiting for
Uh-huh.
you when you're ready, but your health, both physical and mental, matter the most. Being able to feed yourself
Yeah.
matters the most.
Well, and to be honest, before you click, can you go back? Okay. I will say this to music and movies and more's comment that you're smarter than I am, because you have acknowledged that you have, I can do this or this, and that's what's gonna get me through. Me, yeah, I was kind of an idiot in some ways. I admit it fully, and I just okay, so I didn't study for the test because I had to work, a 12-hour day at whatever. So in the end, my studies, they suffered. When I stopped trying to be the hero and working all of this stuff and going to school, and I had that conversation with my parents, I graduated at the top of my class.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mean to do that, but I did when I realized that, okay, working as a third key holder in retail was not my end goal.
Mm-hmm.
Getting my master's degree in English was.
Right. Yeah.
And when I grew up and realized that's the realization and that's the reality.
Well,
Yeah.
I also want to say that I don't think you were an idiot for that, because at that time you thought that that was what you needed to do, right? Because like I feel like our generation specifically, like we learned that in order to get what we want, we have to work for it.
Mm-hmm.
When because of inflation and the cost of living, etc., like we've gotten to this point where there's like an imbalance, right? Like for example, a person working minimum wage right now cannot afford to sustain a household or any of that, right? And even when we were going to college, like what, in the early to mid 2000s, like that would have been near impossible even then to sustain a household, right?
Absolutely.
And like I learned this, honestly, having 3 jobs at once. I think also, like, we think that that's something that we need to do because it's more money, more money, more money, but we are dividing ourselves in 4 different ways when you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And for a long time, that kind of became an addiction for me, having more than one job. It wasn't until about a year ago that I started realizing that I don't need 3 jobs to sustain myself.
But
right?
honey, the job that you have now is 3 jobs.
I know, right?
It's one institution.
Right? Well, yeah, like, and that could be like a whole nother conversation,
Yeah.
right? But like when you think about it, like because of the student debt crisis, I think it's kind of bled over into other areas and exasperated other areas as well, like regarding pay, regarding obligation, etc., like so many different things. Leo says college debts are why I never go to college. Why I would never go to college. I could never get through such a thing. And that's completely okay. Like it's okay to feel that way and to have made that decision. I also think there's like this shame. Well, at least there used to be. Like I know in like the mid 2000s, there used to be like a shame of like, oh, well, you're not going to college after high school. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing with your life? And I'm just gonna say, like, and we were talking about this before, like the show started, like college isn't the end all be all the time. Like I love it, and I'm glad. Like even though I am astronomically in debt, I am very happy with what I'm doing with my life. I feel very wholesome about it. To get where I am now, I would gladly repeat what I went through, except I wouldn't, have had myself have an eating disorder or anything like that. But I'm happy where I'm at, but happiness can be found in many other ways than just going to college. Like you could go to a trade school, you could work in the field and the career that you're interested in and build experience that way, right? So I'm going off on a tangent now. Here we go.
But I love the tangent because it's absolutely true.
Right. So let's talk about the history of the student debt crisis a little bit. So let me see. I found a source. Now I need to just find it. Let's see here. Where did it go? Okay, so the student debt crisis started gaining momentum in the mid to late 80s when President Reagan at that time cut higher education funding and student aid. And that's when college costs started booming because a lot of universities and for-profit institutions like did not receive the federal and state funding that they needed to sustain themselves, right? So that's why costs started to rise. And from this source, talks a little bit about the Great Recession of 2008. It says, from the start of the Great Recession in 2008 to the relative economic stability of 2018, college costs and debt increased significantly. By state and federal funding for higher education, the biggest source of revenue for most schools has not returned to pre-2008 levels. In 2018, state funding for 2- and 4-year public colleges was over $7 billion less than it was in 2008. So, and it also goes on to say that during the 2019-2020 school year, the average cost of tuition fees, room and board, was $21,950 for in-state students at public universities and $38,000 for out-of-state students at public universities. So that's astronomical. That's probably about a good $6,000 to $8,000 more than what it was like yearly when I went to college about a decade and a half ago. Let's see. Music, movies, and more with Brian says, honestly, I felt that college was the only way I could improve my ability to earn more money. I am physically disabled and didn't really have a choice back when I graduated high school. Yeah, I think that like a lot of people, I think we've been kind of conditioned also to believe that college was the only way to improve one's ability to earn more money. But of course, added that, that aspect of being disabled, like that makes it even more challenging because there is that issue with accessibility, right? Because when it comes to accessibility, that's something that has really not been taken seriously until like the last 10 years or so.
Right.
Yeah. So, Kaishana is here. Hello, Kaishana.
Hello.
Kaishana asks, why can't college just be free? I know, right?
Yeah.
Well, because like in many ways, like and people can disagree with me if they want, and I'm sure there would be people out there that would disagree with me. I think once the student debt crisis happened and once colleges and universities started losing funding from federal and states, I think that they had to really kind of like fall back on like thinking of the institution as being a business, right? Yes. So everything became so transactional. There was a way, they found a way to make everything some sort of marketable thing for the institution in order to sustain themselves. But they did that often at the expense of students, right? So because those are the first people who are impacted.
It's funny you say that because I can remember when I was first teaching, when I basically was told that we need to view our students, not so much as students, but as customers and or patrons. That blew me out of the water. I was like, what?
Yeah.
And it really did. That was my real first introduction to the idea of college being a business. And the thing about college being free, you know, I cannot decide on that. One part of me is like, there is no such thing as a free lunch. Somebody's got to pay, because you still got to pay the faculty and the staff, and you got to pay to keep the lights on and everything. So where would the money come from? The money would come from your taxes, and who can afford higher taxes? But at the same time,
yeah, it's kind of like a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of a situation.
Exactly. What
You know,
what I think is, I think college costs way too much money. I absolutely do. I think that what you went through, for example, with your anxiety, what we're going through now, trying to pay back my husband's student loans, should not happen. Should not happen.
No. Yeah.
But I don't know if I would go totally free, because if I don't know
how sustainable would that be, right?
Yeah, maybe that's a better way of saying it, is the sustainability of it. I don't know.
Like if it could, like, and I think a lot of the issue is that, like, obviously this would have to be a decision made on a like legislative level, right?
Yes.
And like we were talking about this in the back room, like we came to the conclusion that in order to fix the student debt crisis and make higher education more affordable, it would need to be a multi-pronged approach, right? Like it would need to be something that would work legislatively. It would need to work with like borrower, etc. Like, and it would have to also allow the institution to be able to sustain itself at the same time. So there's like a very delicate balance between.
Yeah. And I wish, I wish I knew what the right answer was, because, but yeah.
Well, and RB brings up the fact that Walmart offers free college courses if you work there, right? So like there are some like businesses out there that like if you work for the business, like they will try to help in some ways. I think that's a good way to alleviate part of the student debt crisis, but that doesn't happen on such a large level, that doesn't happen widely, right. Music, movies, and more with Brian says, thank you for acknowledging me in the chat. I unfortunately have to go fix dinner. You are always more than welcome to join us, Brian. Absolutely. Thank you for being here, and thank you for interacting.
Enjoy dinner.
Enjoy dinner, and we really appreciate your thoughts tonight.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Let's see. Kaishana says, I understand the funding issue, but most universities seem more geared towards a business type. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there would have to be like a bottom up reinvention of like of academia as an institution that should be viewed as being more than just a business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agree.
Because Leo says, because this country believes money is a real tangible thing. Kaishana says, I can't stay long, but I have enjoyed the conversations about bettering the college systems. Thank you, Kaishana. I appreciate it. We might be revisiting this topic in the future, so if you have any ideas or anything, like feel free to share them. We might be able to talk about those too.
Maybe together we can figure out a way to fix the problem.
Right. Leo says, don't other countries have free college tuition? Yes, some do.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, and a lot of it is connected with like different government programs that like promote that. A lot of it has to do with like tax incentives, etc. So let's see. RP confirms, yeah, if you work there. Yeah. I've never had a job that would pay for college classes.
Neither.
Well, other than now, like now, if I take like a college class, I do get compensated for it. But like back, like over the many jobs that I've had over the past 20 years, like they've been like college schmollage. Like that.
I get like 10% off, at the bookstore. That's about all I get.
No, 10% off on a $300 book.
Oh, I don't know. $30 is, pretty good.
Like it's interesting that we're talking about books right now. I've been, in my capacity as faculty, one of the things that I've been trying to do more is work in open educational resources, which I think I've told you about this, Heather, before. Yes. But and open educational resources are basically like textbook alternatives that are far more cost effective, because obviously as students, like the cost of textbooks could mean like paying a month's rent or
Oh
not,
yeah.
being able to buy groceries for a month or
Mm-hmm.
not, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like that really matters. I think if there are more efforts like that take place too, that has the potential to make things a lot easier.
You shouldn't be modest. He's written one, folks.
Oh,
He's written
I
one.
did. My like friend of mine, Amy and I, we wrote a developmental reading open educational resource. It was actually really fun. I got paid to do it too. It was like a grant. So, and we got to, Heather and I got to team teach together.
Yep. And I
was fun.
helped put some of the stuff in the book, but
You
yeah,
did.
I mean, you guys did great. It's a wonderful piece.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see, like, I mean, obviously what impacts of the student debt crisis do we see now? I would say that what we've talked about from our personal experiences, I would say is still contemporary. You know,
yeah.
It's not like it's been like a million years ago. I remember when I was in college, here's another one that's like really mind-boggling to me. I had a friend who lived out of their van in the parking lot at my university, even in the wintertime, sub-zero. And they eventually got fined for staying on a campus parking lot. Yeah. And had to leave. So I'm just like I read that or I heard about that and I was just like, what? Like that's terrible.
You're a lot cleaner than I have several expletives running through my head with that.
I mean, I always have expletives running through my head. I'm so grateful I have a filter because if I didn't, you would just hear like beep, just like one constant beep.
Yeah. It's kind of where I'm at with that.
Yeah. So I would argue that in many ways it's a lot worse now because of the cost of it, like how inflated things are. 100%. So what can we do to undo the student debt crisis? So again, multi-pronged approach. That's what we talked about before. Arpy's like, go off, guys.
Okay, WTF.
WTF.
Are you effing kidding me? Oh, okay, all right.
See, that wasn't even fully profane, but it still got it out of your system.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't even remotely profane enough.
But so okay, so honestly, I have seen so many solutions out there. The problem is that there are always ideas, but politically speaking, whether we gain the momentum on those ideas or not is a completely another story.
Right.
You know, so I would argue that some ways that we could work toward undoing the student debt crisis would be advocating for student loan forgiveness in acknowledgement of the sheer amount of inflation, the incalculable inflation, especially like I think that one way to also help cushion it a little bit was what they chose to do during the pandemic by putting loans like in forbearance without any interest accrual. Like that's good. I'm glad that they made that decision because can you imagine the amount of unemployed people who couldn't pay their student loans, who had to pay interest on top of it too during the pandemic if that wasn't done? Like that would have been terrible.
You know, and I will add to this one too, the advocating for loan forgiveness. I think it needs to go even a step further than that because, all right, so let's say that everybody who graduated yesterday and back, all right, that has not been able to pay off their loans, you're done, you're free, you get out of jail card free.
Yeah.
But what about the kids students who are graduating tomorrow and forward?
Yeah.
What's it going to look like to them that everybody, their parents and back, got a free lunch, but they didn't?
Yeah, so there would need to be something put in place for it to be sustainable from here on out.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly. A good point. Leo says, literally just forgive all the debt and start over. Give the current generations a chance to make a steady income. Yes.
That would be
it's
beautiful.
I mean, it's not funny. I almost said it's funny you mentioned that, but I literally have regular conversations with many of my friends who are in similar debt to me. Like, we just kind of like self-loathingly make jokes about how we'll probably never be able to afford to buy a house.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really sad.
It is.
Leo says, also tax the rich. Like, seriously, tax the rich who keep loopholing their way out. There are a lot of institutions that do, unfortunately. Yeah. So other ideas, value education again.
The teacher's coming out, hon.
Right. So honestly, over the past decade, like, we can tell that the education institution's been devalued. Like, during the pandemic, like, many of us have seen many different news reports about like teachers especially being disregarded, students being placed in harm's way due to like COVID, like ignoring and disregarding COVID protocols, so on and so forth. People not taking teaching seriously as like an important vocation that would require any form of protection, because technically teachers, administrators, school workers, like, they're frontline workers.
Yep.
Even though people don't really always want to acknowledge that. But when you think about it, because of those cuts that happened 40 years ago almost, like, that's been 40 years of cumulative devaluing of education. Yep. Which is kind of terrifying when you think about it. 40 years.
Well, especially when you think about it, like you and I said in back room before we came on, that the teachers are teaching the next generation how to run the world, how things work. And I mean, how can you devalue the person who's going to teach your future doctor how to do an operation on you?
Yep.
I mean, they didn't just come out of the womb knowing how to do an appendectomy, And if they did, I want to meet this kid. I just got to say.
If they did, I'm kind of terrified.
A little freaky head, isn't it? Just the thought of that.
Yes.
Ooh, like, who are you a reincarnation of?
Right.
Jeffrey Dahmer. I don't know. Anyway, the punchline. Okay, sorry, totally went off.
That was hilarious. I love it when you go off.
When I go off, yeah. But I mean, if you think about it, these people are going to be your doctors, your lawyers, your veterinarians. I mean, if you value your pets, I mean, think about it.
Yeah.
But to devalue the people that are teaching those future people to be what they're going to be, that's kind of silly. If you think about it.
It is 100%.
We're shooting ourselves in the foot with both barrels.
Another idea, improving the accessibility of education. There are many places and many groups of people where like education is just simply not accessible. Especially when we talk about like marginalized communities. There are many that just don't have that access. So expanding that access is unbelievably important. Another idea, view education as being more than simply a business model. Yep. Connect it more with like empathy again. Like, I think once we can do that, like, that really, I think that'll bring things back in full circle. Connect people with their passions. It doesn't matter if it's a STEM field or a humanities field or anything, like, allow people to connect with what they love, right? Were you about to say something? I thought.
The one about improving the accessibility of education. I attended a webinar a couple of weeks ago, and that really kind of fired me up about this topic, because the webinar was about refugees seeking higher education. And the number of refugees, because of what's been going on in the world recently, I can't remember the exact number. I want to say it's gone from like 1 million to like 21 million people. It was a crazy number. I wish I could remember what it was, but and it's not just Ukraine. I mean, there are a lot of people that are, had to leave their homes. And making higher education, especially, more accessible to them. Like, don't automatically expect that everybody is going to have a computer. We think that they're going to have they don't have access to computers. Or when I help with any kind of test, they might not understand the topic that you've given them, because it might just be a first world problem,
Yeah,
like,
it's so true.
Starbucks no longer has grande lattes. Write about that for a page. They're going to be like, what the hell's a grande? I don't know what this is.
I'd write a whole page about why I'm depressed about that.
Why are you depressed about that?
Because that's a first world problem.
It is. It really is. So, but I mean, it really was very eye-opening. It's stuff you never thought about. And I mean, I always thought about the computer part of it, but the other things were like, wow, you're right. I never thought about that.
Let me say about it, Leo, really, really quick first. Have a good night, Leo. Thank you for tuning in.
Bye, Leo.
When you think about it, and we've talked about privilege a bit here, I think, like, for those of us who did have the means to go to college and come out, well, relatively, I mean, scathed, but not like detrimentally so I cannot speak tonight. I said soul. Maybe that speaks loudly. I don't have one anymore because of how much debt I'm in.
Sucked out.
But when you think about it, like, we do have a certain degree of privilege too, because we were able to get through the process,
right,
for the most part. But there are so many people who don't, So I think a lot of it has to do with like even us, like you and I, like people like us learning about like these different intersections and like how different groups of people are impacted. Like, I never even thought about refugees and their access to higher education because of my own privilege. Right?
Yeah.
So it's just interesting to think about. Final question of the night. Is attending higher education worth it? It's a hard question to answer. I will argue and say that there should not be a definitive yes or no. I think it really depends on a person's situation, what access they have, and whether or not they are able to sustain themselves throughout that process. So, and also it's okay for people not to, like if they choose not to, that's important. So personally, for me, being where I am right now, like I am a professor, I am a writer, I am very happy with where I've become, like how far I've come, let's just say. Was there a lot of difficulty along the way that I wish did not happen? Yes. But again, because I'm at the point where I am, I have the privilege of being able to say that. There are other people who do not. How would you answer that question, Heather?
I actually agree with a lot of what you said. My answer is attending higher education worth it? My answer is yes and no. I think there is no hard answer because the truth is college is not for everyone. It's just not. Like my brother, for example, he tried college for a couple semesters and realized it wasn't for him. So he left and he got a job as a diesel mechanic and he's doing great and he loves it. And I couldn't be prouder of him. It's truly, I think the more important question is higher education worth it? Yeah, I think being educated is worth it. I will never frown upon knowledge. But I think at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, is it you and what makes you happy? If you're happy going to school, I loved it. I love school. I mean, you remove the all the debt and everything, get to the heart of it. I love to learn. I love to learn about people. I love to learn about their past. I do. I love to learn. So for me, it was absolutely worth it. But if that's not what makes you happy, then hell no, it's not worth it.
Right.
Why go into debt, that much debt for something that isn't going to make you happy?
Yeah. So really, it's all about identifying what direction you think will make you happiest. Right?
Exactly.
For me, I knew this would be the direction that would make me happy, which is why I went this direction.
Mm-hmm.
Was there a lot of unhappiness at certain points? Oh, hell yes. Yes,
Yeah.
there was. But in the long run, I am happy. I am definitely happy where I am.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't doubt that I could have probably found something else. Like I probably would have, but you know, that just didn't seem to be in my reality at that time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so this has been like a very layered conversation, right? Because it's such a in-depth topic, right? But thank you everyone for joining us again tonight. It's been great. And what parting words do we have for the evening? My parting words are do what you want.
Mm-hmm.
Not like super wise, but what are your parting words, Heather?
Sorry, my parting words is hell no, it ain't worth it if it ain't gonna make you happy.
I think that needs to be etched in stone on the side of a mountain.
But make sure you have triple exclamation points. Hell no.
And an underline.
And an underline.
All right, everyone.
Sorry, I'm not super wise tonight.
It's okay. I'm not either. It's been a long week so far. Well, we love you, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. We will see you again next week.
Bye, guys.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.